what for you are the most important parts of army planning?
Planning projects in general, one of the biggest things I would advise is like have a goal, and that goal should determine all the choices that lead you to it.
Planning comes into play when you are tight on time and you want to get as much as possible out of that time.
Planning an army is much more important than planning an individual miniature.
If you're painting something for an army and you want it to be more streamlined, then one of the real important things within the colours is just contrast.
Hello everyone and welcome to Paint Perspective, episode 101, sponsored by Everything Airbrush for all of your airbrushing needs, paints, supplies, all that good stuff. Check the link in the description. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to plan better miniature painting projects and how they can improve your painting overall. Quite overlooked. We've spoken about it a lot of times on previous episodes, but we're doing a whole topic around it. So I think that'll be good fun. But first, there was no episode last week, but we're back.
Yeah.
Better than ever.
You going to apologise?
It's not in the spirit of George to apologise for anything, really.
That's
is it?
true.
George
Yeah.
doesn't do apologies, apparently.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain why we didn't have an episode at least?
I was away on holiday
Mhm.
and UK Games Expo and Iron Skull and other events all landing in the same week.
Everything.
I can only edit so many podcasts in a week. I can
Yeah.
only pre-record so many podcasts in a week.
And to be fair, me and James kept saying like, but what about the listeners?
I know.
Like,
We were
come
fighting
on.
your fight, but
And George just didn't care.
he's having none of
really.
it.
He was like, I don't care.
Are you going to apologise to listeners for not knowing how to hit a record button and make an episode without me?
Look, I could have done that. I'm actually going to say you're welcome to listeners for not having to listen to how that would have ended up.
Yeah.
Because that would have been painful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, they criticise me for the audio quality sometimes. So maybe if you
I
did
can
one.
only imagine what it would have
Yeah.
been. I was tempted to just sit down with James and put a phone on a tripod and just talk to the phone. Old school YouTube style. See
Vlog-
how that came
Vlog
out.
it up.
I
Yeah.
feel like in a way people would have enjoyed that, actually.
Yeah.
How's the hobby been?
James?
Can't comment. None. Nil point.
Guys,
Like,
help
honestly,
me out here.
Like
Yeah.
we are going through the busiest period of our year with UK Games Expo, annual leave, Iron Skull. There's like, and I'm not even talking about like scenics and stuff like that. I've got so much on at the minute. I have literally
You've been hobby adjacent in a way. I keep on seeing on your...
not through choice, George. Not through choice. Okay.
I keep on
like-
seeing on your story you're doing like the prep for the
Yeah, I'm
trophies and
prepping the
stuff.
trophies like you'd not believe. Like each one is getting like dremeled, wet sanded, then painted. So yeah, it's a lot of work. And that's around all the other stuff. Like again, I'm not going to spoil anything scenics wise, but there's a lot of stuff coming. Is all I'll say. And I've been very, very good with a pair of scissors. Let's put it that way. That's all I'm going to say. So
I'm imagining James has come up with some sort of Warhammer bonsai tree
no,
and he's got the little scissors
No.
and he's just clipping
I
them.
wish, George. I wish, but no. There's just
It
like
just grows tufts. It
Yeah.
grows new tufts.
yeah. Me and Ad.
Clips them on and puts it on the paper.
That's where they come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know they say, like money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Grass tufts do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I am like super, super hungry to get back on the brushes. June 8th will be a complete chill day of painting for me, I think, after Iron Skull.
Is that the day after Iron Skull?
It's the day after Iron Skull. It's my first day of doing something for myself in a long
Yeah.
time.
Those times align quite well because that's when you got max motivation off the back of a painting competition.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like the day after would be the day, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And we've said before about sometimes like a period of time where you're not able to paint,
Mhm.
but you want to.
It's so
and
annoying.
sometimes like it can build you up to like then when you do get a session in, it's like you're all in.
The only
You're locked
painting I've done in the
kind of.
last 4 weeks is teach the class at Bad Moon and then the class at Offworld. That's the only painting I've done. So I've just been doing like painting demos. Not done anything for myself. Get the little violin out. But like,
So does that mean that Lycus isn't finished?
I'm not commenting on that. I'm not commenting
But will
on
it
that.
be finished, James?
It will be. Yeah, it will be. Yeah, it will be. I'll have it for Monty. I'll have it for Monty. I'll have it for Monty Santovino in November.
There'll be a
When's
new
that-
yeah.
There'll be a new Lycus by then.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
so old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Can't comment really, but yeah, no. I just want to get back on the brushes, and it's been about 4 or 5 weeks I think that I haven't. It's really annoying, like genuinely very annoying, because stuff's just looking at me at home, and I'm like, I want to. It's not for a want of not wanting to.
I actually did do a little something.
Ooh.
I got a couple of sessions
Go on,
in.
Joe.
Take it.
Nothing to
Holding
do
up the
with-
team.
Nothing to do with the Space Marine Army though. I didn't want to look at it after we did. I did like every session leading up to episode 100 or whatever. And I was like, I don't even want to look at this in a minute. But what I did was there was an old, there was a Underworld's warband that I'd kind of started previously. And I kind of dug them out of the drawer and I thought, do you know what? Let me try and at least get them all. They were like sort of bits were base coated. I was like, let me try and get something going a little bit more along with these. So I had a little bit of a session on those.
Good.
Yeah, I love it. Like the enjoyment difference between painting Space Marines versus painting like an Underworld's warband is mad for me. Like there's so much more fun. And it's basically like 4 little characters, even though it's like 4 characters, but they share, you can batch them. Do you know what I mean? They share loads of colors and materials, but they're all interesting from each other.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
So yeah, picture if I remember to send it to George.
How far did you get?
They're all fully base coated. Started some shading on stuff.
That's not bad.
Yeah, pretty good.
Nice.
I don't have any pictures to George because mine just got dust on them at the moment. So
I think do you know what? I think they're quite valuable now as well. So I think they're like out of production and that.
Some of those Underworlds warbands, and same for like Warcry and stuff.
I think
Some
I
of them
mentioned
kind of
them.
drifted out.
I might have mentioned them on an episode before when I originally started them, and it's the Null Spirit. I think they're called Null Spirit pack, which is like the sort of dark oath looking Slaves to Darkness, sort of tribally, chaosy guys.
yeah, they're cool. I know the ones you mean.
A massive dude with a big hammer, and then a couple of little ones running about. Really cool models though. Yeah, so there you go. I've actually done something.
Hey,
And
round of applause for Jovan.
You've been on holiday, so you haven't, and then James hasn't either. So I'm the only one.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong. Let me have it.
No, you are wrong.
Well, you took painting on holiday.
I didn't take it on holiday, but I had one additional day between when I returned from my holiday and when I returned to work.
So you got to paint.
What'd you do?
I cannot talk about the miniature that I painted because it is, of course, my Iron Skull entry.
Ah.
However, putting some good time on that. It's very close to finish now. I think I'm going to finish it this week.
Well, I hope so because the competition's only a week and a half away.
Yeah.
Well, not a week and a half away.
Technically, I mean, we can know.
No. No.
The listeners can't.
No.
You can't know.
No, you can.
Why can't we?
Even James doesn't know.
I'm not entering. I'm not even going to be there.
I can tell you that. I
I'm not
suppose.
going to get to see it.
I can tell you, I suppose.
I won't get to see it till the morning of. So
You want the surprise?
I
do
want
you,
the
of
surprise,
seeing
yeah, of course
everyone,
I
I thought you was going to get me to enter it for you.
What, my one?
I thought you was going to do something.
Can't
and then
do that. It's against rules. Got to be there.
Let's say it how it is. You tried to peer pressure me on air into agreeing to that. And I said no.
I don't think you exactly said no.
No, I'm not entering anything to Iron Skull because I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. Yeah, so. But part of me did think like, oh, if I enjoyed painting these and I could do something, then it could line up. But no, it's not going to happen.
stars in the line.
No.
Next year?
Sure. I'm just hesitant to say yes on air because even though it's a year away,
You know what
I
happens.
know it'll come back to bite me.
Yeah.
I can't wait for a year from now to like roll the tape. You
That's
saying
what
you're
I'm
going to do
saying,
it.
yeah.
James saying he's going to do Lycus, and then none of them are done.
Yeah.
If she's not done by then, I've got a problem.
I tripped myself up on this podcast too many times. We're saying I'm going to do something. I'm starting to learn that when I say something on here, it's out there forever now.
It's only taken 101 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can say this is the new era. This is the post 100 episode era of Paint Perspective.
The second century
Second
of
century,
yeah.
Paint Perspective.
Yeah. And, you know.
That was so last century.
Big news, some huge updates have arrived to the Siege Studios Patreon to give you brand new perks and includes even more bonus content. Our refreshed tiers include extended ad-free episodes of this podcast, including our new post show, extended masterclass video tutorials with bonus tips and techniques, invitations to hobby hangouts with us, exclusive Discord channels, and of course, instant access to hundreds of easy-to-follow, step-by-step PDF tutorials updated every single month. And you can even get dedicated video feedback of your miniatures with our critique clinic, so you'll always know what skills you need to improve next. So what are you waiting for? Take the next leap in miniature painting and improve your skills for the same price as just a few pots of paint. Head to patreon.com/Siege Studios to learn more. So the topic for this week, our method for planning better Warhammer armies and miniature painting projects in general. So we like a bit of a plan around here. I think it's been a...
I do more planning than painting.
We'll get to that.
This is my episode.
We'll get to that. But I think planning is an important part of the painting process, and we've discussed it a lot on the podcast. So I thought maybe actually doing a full episode on it would be quite valuable for listeners, because we have a lot of people asking about like painting journals and how we like to plan out army projects versus like just a character or like a competition piece. So I thought we'd break all of that down, and I'd imagine that each of us have a slightly different method for planning, and hopefully the listeners can kind of listen to our pitches and come up with maybe their own spin on it, what works for them best. But the first, I guess, center point for this is like, why is planning important for miniature painting? And is it something that should just be brief, or do you go like fully into it? Or is it something that I would imagine a lot of people don't do kind of to any degree? Is it necessary for every single project? So why is planning important for you guys?
I think for me, and in my opinion on it, is that when it involves attention and time, which in my opinion are the two most important commodities, doing it without taking those into consideration or what you're trying to achieve or do with it, for me, feels a little bit too unguided. I think I like to have structure with how I approach army projects and how I approach just choosing colors and all those bits and bobs. I love structure and that can be structure of knowledge of experimenting with stuff, or that could be structure and knowledge of like the process that you have, or any of those aspects. I think that really helps to give you something to, if you go away for a week and come back, you can pick it up really easily. I think one of the biggest problems I hear a lot when I speak to people in classes or in general talking to painters is that they'll have a gap or a lapse, like what I'm going through now, and they return to something and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I've forgotten what I've done, or I've got no way of easily picking it back up. And then you've got to think about the time that you've got to hemorrhage relearning all the things that you've done prior to that gap to then be able to pick it up again and go again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess what you're getting at is like, especially because the way the listeners will know from 100 episodes now, but oftentimes when we're talking about projects, we're quite tight on time that we can put in. Yeah. So I think sometimes when you start, you have a lot, like you're maybe younger, you'll have a lot more time to put in, and you can get away with like not planning,
especially when you're under 30.
Yeah. When you're under 30,
it's annoying there's no one under 30 on this podcast.
You don't have any responsibilities. No, like I'm talking about even like, younger, like when you're a kid or whatever, like you don't need to plan.
No.
Because you don't have a goal and you don't have you're not tight on time. You maybe want to get something done before Simpsons is on at 6 or something, but other than that,
100% Futurama, mate.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So what I'm getting at is like the planning really comes in, I think, when like we say, we're trying to fit as much into a small time allotment as possible. I think that's one of the biggest benefits to it.
I think just to touch onto that as well, like I think when you are younger, that's actually the best time to not have the requirement for planning, because you're learning and experimenting and getting used to stuff and trying things out, and like that should be the time frame within your painting where you're getting to grips with like all the things you want to master down the line, if that makes sense. So like I think there's a reason for that, and I do think that with life getting busier for people in general, that's where structure, I think, will help a lot of people in my mind. Is
there a bell curve to that? Like when you get to retire and then pow.
Yeah, it comes back.
You're back.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've got more time to spend on it, I suppose.
I don't think it's necessarily an age thing either. It's just like where you're at in your life.
Yeah,
and how much available
I
think
bandwidth you have for these things.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an age thing. That was more of
it's a generalization.
That was just a generalization and an opportunity to poke fun at George.
I did notice the side eye.
That was pretty much it. Yeah, it's more just your life circumstances, right? A lot of people experienced it during COVID, where they actually had a lot more free time. Maybe the plan in each project wasn't as important at that point because you had a lot of time to fill, you could be a bit more free with it. But I think, planning comes into play when you are tight on time and you want to get as much as possible out of that time.
I think I pushed back on planning a little bit initially because, not for any of the reasons that you're saying, but the idea of it and making my hobby like school and doing this like boring structured thing you don't like as an obstacle to getting to painting, which is the fun bit. But I actually found that it wasn't really true at all. Like the planning process can be really, really enjoyable.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And
it can be a new hobby. I'm going to say this now.
Yeah. And equally, I think while it might take time to plan, net benefit overall, it streamlines the process massively.
See, I think you need to be calculated when you do the planning. And I think one of the most important ways to determine that is, like I always say, when you first sit down to your desk to do some hobby or paint or whatever, have a think about what that session is for. And again, if you've got 10, 20 minutes, don't chase the dopamine hit of, I've got to get the 5 edge highlight stages done on that model in 20 minutes, or that I've got to do this, or I've got to do this. Don't chase that. Leave that for a session that's longer where you've got more time to actually do it, and maybe use that shorter session that's 15, 20, 25 minutes, half an hour, whatever, to put in place all the groundwork that makes the longer session 10 times easier and better for you because you've got a plan in place. And then you get a return for that 30 minutes. You get something that's tangible that still gives you a sense of accomplishment, but at the same time, it means everything else following that is actually easier and better to repeat multiple times.
Have there been any times that you can remember where you haven't planned something and it backfired, and then it's been quite obvious that if you'd have made a plan, you could have saved like maybe ruining a model or messing up your painting color scheme, etc.?
I got one. So this isn't necessarily that I didn't plan. This is more specifically to do with, I guess, keeping color schemes written down and organized and stuff like that. So before I was doing that regularly, I started a like orc character, and I did some of my like best painting I think I've ever done on it. I almost finished the skin. I did all the armor. It was the Warhammer Plus like first year.
Oh yeah, I know.
War Boss.
Yeah. Loved the model. Was really excited to paint it, and I didn't finish it, and then I went back to not painting that much and just sort of put it aside, and I didn't write any of the recipes down or anything. And then when I came to like finish it, I could not for the life of me work out how I'd done the skin, and I was just completely unable to finish the model because I couldn't sort of tidy up bits of the skin and without having to repaint everything. Do you know what I mean? And that to me was just like it was a complete mood killer. Like I was like, I've gone from like fully good vibes. Like,
did you forget entirely the paints, or was it like you had the wrong memory? Because I've done it before where I've not written it down and I'm like, I'll remember this, and then I sit back down and I'm like, see, I remember this, and the list that I've formulated in my head is incorrect.
So I reckon I knew like roughly, but the problem I've got specifically with green is I've got tons of different green paints, like loads, like too many. And
you kitted out in green now.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at him, he loves it.
Yeah, I've got too many. So like, I just didn't even know where to start. And there was some like weird Vallejo ones that I used, and I was like, I don't know whether it's olive green or green olive. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I was just like,
we've all been there with those name problems, Joe.
Yeah. So look, realistically, I could have spent some time and either tested a few things out or just repainted certain areas, but it was just a complete vibe killer. Could not be bothered. That model is still in the exact same condition now. I'm probably just going to sell it as like a half painted thing, to be honest, because I'm not going to finish it. I don't know. So if I'd have just written it down and kept it organized, I could have gone back to it fairly easy, as I just have done with this warband that I mentioned.
Yeah.
I actually have the entire, that is complete opposite. That is a project that I actually did fully plan, and I've written down my entire projected recipe for the whole thing. And it's in my notes app on my phone, but every stage I've done, I've put a little tick next to it, and then the rest is stages that I haven't done. So I knew exactly where to come back. And I didn't even have the issue where, like, you know, we can say sometimes years later, like batches of paint and stuff like that. Didn't even have that issue because a lot of these paints are still the exact same pots of paint that I've got at home. I haven't bought new ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was perfect. It was a perfect match. Like everything I was able to just pick straight back up with. And if I'd have just done that with the Orc, I might have had a nice finished Orc by now.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You can kind of do the planning from either end in a way because you've sort of got the, here's what I'm going to do at the start before I've actually done anything. And then you've also got the sort of like data keeping of what you actually did. So I think planning can be kind of retrospective in a way where even if you don't necessarily sit down with a plan, you can paint your miniature, and just keeping notes on what you did is really valuable because afterwards, if you start planning another project, you've got that to revert back to, or equally, like you said, if you take a break or something, you can kind of revert back to it because that almost effectively becomes the plan. You could like finish the miniature.
I think that's one of the reasons I was saying it's not entirely overall a planning issue, but for me, I actually do like to, even if I don't 100% stick to it and I make changes along the way, I do like to now write an entire projected recipe list for the whole thing before I start.
Do you then like go back and edit it if things
I change or it doesn't work, I'll just go back and edit it. But like, I like to at least have a first draft, if you like. So I have something.
Like a skeleton.
Yeah, it's like writing my own tutorial. Do you know what I mean? Like when people follow recipes from YouTube or something.
That's quite a cool way of thinking about
I kind of like, at least I've got this to follow and this makes sense in my head and on paper. If it doesn't work, I'll change it. I like to do that now. Yeah.
Are you like painting along and in your head you're like narrating?
Yeah, I'm like, and now apply. Yeah. So that's why to me, that's planning. But I know to everyone, sometimes they'll write the list as they go. That's maybe writing the recipe list isn't part of the planning process.
I still kind of put that in the umbrella of like project planning to a degree, even though it's not like to the definition of the word before you start painting necessarily. But I do put that in the same like category.
Yeah. Which actually, I don't know, can we, obviously I just mentioned I was using my notes app and there's something that we spoke about. You can cut this out if we end up not using this. There's something that we spoke about quite a lot, which is the painting journal thing, which James is a fan of, using a painting journal.
Yep.
Do you want to explain what the painting journal is?
So I have an old art book that I like keep paint swatches in, write notes in. I'm above the age of 30 and come from a more analog age. Yeah. So yeah, I come from more of an analog age. So I'm very used to writing stuff down, and I've still, even though it's obviously the world has gone way more digital than even when I was a kid. I mean, the most digital thing I had was a blooming calculator, blooming Casio calculator. But like, anyway,
Did you have the little what?
I did actually. With little numbers on it. I did actually. Yeah. But so I'm a big fan of writing stuff down, and I think that, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it is scientifically proven if you write something down, you remember it better than it being something that's digital. I think if you actually physically write it and spend the time to write it out, I think you do memorize stuff better. There'll be some scientific study out there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm sure I'm right on that. But
I'm going to take your word for it, I think.
Yeah.
As should all of the listeners.
We're on a podcast. All you need to do is say, studies suggest.
Yeah.
And then back it up with no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I have heard that a lot though. Yeah, people do
but
say
studies suggest that. So as a result of that, I've always used a physical thing to document stuff because I like the fact that I can it doesn't need a battery. I don't need to go back to charge it. I don't need to do any of this stuff to be able to use it. I know you're saying you use notes and stuff. And I think that because painting and outside of miniature painting, even art in general, is a creative thing, and you need to have that kind of freedom of expression, etc. Doing it on a physical, tangible surface that's always there, I think, gives you a better creative release, if that makes sense.
I think that's fair. It's a physical thing we're doing as well, the hobby. Yeah. It's not like you're already on your laptop. You know, you're sat down painting, like all the tech is away from you.
But I think for me, the thing that I love about it most is, you just obviously come back off a holiday. I've had plenty of times where I've not been able to take hobby away from me, but I've taken the art book with me. And if I want to do a project or something, I've got loads of things in there that allow me to essentially plan a project through using that rather than thinking, oh, have I got scab red at home or this red at home or whatever the color. Like I've got something with me that allows me to then do that part of the process, which I ultimately enjoy, which is the planning side of it.
Sorry to interrupt, but like, what is it you do in the book? Like, you're just writing notes? Or?
So I have a rear section of the book which is for paint swatches, and I do loads of paint swatches in there of as many paints as possible. Whenever I get a new paint, if I've got 5 minutes to kill, I'll do like a swatch in there, and I'll write notes next to it to kind of explain like the scope of dilution, like how much it dilutes.
Sorry, just to jump in, and we can cut this out if we end up not doing it or whatever. James has got a stack of books that he brought as reference. One of those books is our paint journal that we've been working on, right?
It is, yeah.
So can we maybe I think basically James has designed a paint journal. If you're going to talk about what your paint journal looks like, I think we should probably look at the one that you designed to look like, to fulfill your own uses. If we can make it work that this is up for pre-order now.
Yeah.
Then if this bit's in the podcast, then it's up for pre-order now.
Okay, cool.
Can we do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the Siege Studios painting journal is something that I've been working on for quite some time.
It's kind of off the back of us discussing James's painting journal many episodes back.
Yeah.
And people asking.
And people saying like, oh, maybe you should, like, how do I plan mine? People asking for advice on what you did in yours and kind of wanting a bit of a format to follow.
Because I'll be real, the reason I'm using the Notes app and I haven't gone out and bought an art book is I'm the sort of person that would need something like this where it's all laid out for me. If I was going to do it in a book, like I couldn't stare at a blank art book and figure out, I'm going to use these pages this way, I'm going to use these pages this way, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what I've wanted to do. I've wanted to basically put some structure into the way of doing it. Because an art book, you're quite right, the pages are all blank. And it obviously breeds creativity having that, and it allows you to complete blank canvas. But what I want to do with this is give it's really hard. You kind of want to have like a structure, but at the same time, you don't want to kill creativity of the person using it, which I think was one of the real balances that I found quite hard initially. So as I said, the paint journal is something that I have been working on for a while. It's now ready. It has a nice split between, I'll try and do this being left-handed, it's not the easiest. It's got a split between a few different pages of like just information and bits and bobs, but like a bit of color theory. So it explains a bit about colors, how color theory works, like different types of color relationships, things like that. So I think like the real baseline of what I would advise someone to understand about color theory. Just some other nice glossy shots of like miniatures and stuff. And then we have...
That's the money shot right there. That's the guide you wanted, Joe.
Then... we have a project planning double page spread.
Someone can screenshot that and send it to me, please. Thank you.
So what this does is this project planning page.
That's just like a pre-filled out test page of how you would fill it out, right?
It's an example of like how you could, one way of filling it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the project planning page in that way.
The actual pages are quite open.
Yeah. So I'll get to some of those. I'll just show you now. So a double page spread on the project planning. I don't know how well you're going to see this on the camera, but essentially you've got loads of swatches, loads of lines for you to fill in. And you can really structure how you plan your project. It can be down to things like sections, like leather, or it could be like armor or like skin tone or whatever the case may be. You can basically tailor the pages how you want and to suit, which I think is really helpful for you as a painter. So that's what one of the first sections that's in there is actually there for. It's to basically allow you to have as much creativity as possible on the limited structure that is in there. But the structure that is in there is designed to give you the ability to use sections of it for a specific purpose. Does that make sense? That's why it's taken so long for me to get it together, and while I've been working on it is.
I've been hearing about this for months and months and months.
Literally. I mean, we'll serve the listeners, to be fair. How long ago did we mention journals for the first time? And everyone, I've spoken to people about it and people were commenting and stuff, and they really like the idea of that. So, like I say, if this bit's made it in, then they're up for pre-order.
Well,
now.
we knew this was coming, but this is the first time I'm seeing it like in front of me. So
it's quite exciting. Well, that was just the first the prototype.
That was
I guess,
the prototype,
wasn't it?
and I haven't really. There's not really been any tweaks at all whatsoever. This is essentially the final version of it. I've been printing out loads of pages and bits and bobs and testing it and all this kind of stuff. So like it's
been putting in the R&D.
A fair bit of R&D on it. And as I said, there's a few sections in there. So you have project planning sections. You've got at the back, you've got like a paint library, which is something that I always talk about, whereby like documenting your paints. If you've got limited amount of time and you want to use that time efficiently, you can just get a few paints, put some swatches in there, write some notes. How do they finish? They got a narrow or broad dilution scope, as in lots of pigment, not lots of pigment.
I like the airbrush training pages as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of co-designed with George. George was
you're very helpful on that bit, because I was like, if you can just do some, So there's
I remember like when you first get the airbrush, and everyone's like, oh, get a blank bit of paper and do some like testers and stuff on it. But similar to what you were saying, Joe, I don't
know what to do.
I'm not particularly creative, so I'll just see the blank page and I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'll just do some squiggles on it.
Yeah.
But
this gives a bit of structure for that. And that kind of nods back to that conversation I had with somebody on a class about, if to practice your airbrush, maybe try and airbrush a colouring book, something like that. That's like something that's something that kind of like came from that. But
that's quite a good idea, actually.
But I wanted like a section in the journal that allows you to practice your airbrush as well. Because I think, again, you've got that fine balance of it being a tool that's designed for you to use brushes in, but at the same time, an airbrush is important to miniature painting, especially for doing smooth, consistent finishes and all that kind of stuff. And having a page or layout in there to help with that also is helpful.
I didn't want to go too much off on a tangent, but obviously I just saw it in your stack of reference books. I thought if we're able to, then we might as well get that spoken about and rolled out.
We can talk about
it.
Obviously,
the plan was obviously to have the prototype for people to come and see at UKGE.
Correct, yes.
But I feel like if we can get the pre-orders up now, and then maybe we can have some for sale at UKGE.
Might be able
wants
to
come and get one early.
Might be able to, yeah.
We've got a few in, so
I can confirm we will have a few for UK Games Expo.
There we go.
So
There's your scoop for the episode. Come and see us. Come and see us at UKGE. If you
we're going to do pre-order today when this episode goes up. So if you're watching it, check the link in the description. It should be down there now.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks afterwards, it'll be on sale on the store, right? So
yeah.
If you're watching this after then, we still have it. It's on the website, so check the link anyway.
Yeah. But between now and then, if you come and see us at UKGE, you might be able to get yourself one.
Yeah, a bit early.
Yeah.
Nice.
Obviously, you've got a load of other books there that we go over as well. I don't know if is there anything else specific you wanted to tie into here? Book like with these.
I mean, it depends totally on you as an individual in the sense of what you want to do. For me, I'm a big fan of a book. I love books. I really do. I love art books from 40k. That's one of the things that like a single bit of art will spark that ignition to like maybe a new project or a character or whatever. So I've got this brand new.
Is that the new one?
It's a new one. Yeah, it's really good. Like really, really good. So I've been a big fan of it since I've had a look all the way through it, and I'm just going to open it on a random page.
So this is the Games Workshop new art book thing that they're doing, and this is the second edition.
Second edition one, yeah, it's really good. Like, look at that.
It looks like one of the old ones.
Yeah, it's
like
great.
I feel like I would look at this book and go, "Oh, they don't release those anymore." Do you know what I mean? Like it feels like that.
But there's loads of art in here that like I've not seen before. So there's like some really, really cool bits of art that are like great. And again, you can just like as an example, like just on this page, like you got like an Inquisitor here, or you've got like some Imperial, you got Assassin, you've got like loads of different characters and stuff. And it's a single thing like that for me, that in combination with like when it comes to planning my project, like I like to use like maybe a novel that I'm reading, or I like to write down some notes about like a character that's in there, or like I'll find a bit of artwork, or like it can even.
For example, when it comes to artwork and using that in your planning of your project.
Yeah.
What are you specifically taking? Say that Inquisitor, for example. Say you're about to paint an Inquisitor. Yeah, sure. What are you taking? I don't know if you're going to be able to find the exact page straight away, but what are you looking for in the artwork and taking from the artwork to place into your model?
It could be colors of like armor, or it could be like, here we go. Look, yeah. So like, there we go. I found it straight away. So like, it could be like the yellow trim on like the jacket, for example. It could be anything from the artwork that like you like the look of, or there could be a specific part of it that you're like, do you know what? I really like the look of maybe like the white and black two-tone armor on these bodyguards here. So do you know what? I think a whole entire kill team of like stormtroopers in that color scheme would look good, and that could be the ignition of like a new project or something. And then from that, then you can extrapolate and go, cool, I'm going to write down maybe the colors I would use for that, or maybe like, you know, what would be, I can't see any lenses on there, so what kind of color lenses would I use on like maybe the guns, or like what color would their webbing be, or like,
I suppose as well, even if you saw something like style wise you liked the look of, maybe sitting down with your journal even and having that artwork open and then looking at how you might think you might go about replicating that like lighting style or atmosphere or something like that in terms of like painting stages.
Yeah.
Not necessarily even colors, but like say there's some like volumetric lighting that looks really cool. Maybe being like, okay, well, I could do like a zenithal highlight with the airbrush and then I could put this ink over the top. I'm like having a bit of a plan of it. Because like you said, even if it doesn't kind of go the way that you plan necessarily, you might have to adjust on the fly. But having that as like a skeleton to follow to start with, so that when it comes to, 4 days from now, when you're actually going to sit down and paint that project, you don't have to go all the way back to square one and scratch your head. You've already written it down, you've put pen to paper, you've got an idea in your head of what you're going to do already. Maybe over the next 3 days, because you've written it down, you're kind of mulling it over in the back of your head, while you're on your lunch break at work or whatever. And then when it comes down to sitting down and painting, you're at maximum efficiency right away.
Yeah.
Because you've got that idea of what you're going to do and you can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is like, we order models online. It takes 24 hours, 48 hours for them to get to us, whatever. That's like the perfect time to if you're doing something new and it's not maybe an addition for your current army or whatever. Like if you're just starting something new or you're painting maybe like for example the Night Vault band that you Underworld bands that you painted. Maybe let's just say you had that, you'd ordered that. It takes a couple of days for it to get to you. You got the excitement of buying those models, like all those creative thoughts of how you're going to paint them are like brewing at that point of purchase. Oh, well, yeah, maybe I could do them green armored or red armored, whatever the case may be. That's like the perfect time to then
get them written down,
to document it. So then that when it arrives, you can go, cool, yeah, I've got that idea. Whereas I know a lot of painters that kind of like will get the models and they'll start something new and then they'll spend ages like thinking, what colors to use and all this kind of stuff. Like you can do that before the models arrive, and it gives you a chance to kind of like hobby before hobby, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you can even test the colors out, because I know a lot of times like you have a plan for what colors you're going to use and you put them on the miniature and they don't quite look right. If you'd have had
safety
just a bit of paper or a test model or something just to quickly, swatch those onto to see how they're going to look, that could be a big help as well, because it means you've made that mistake before you've even hit the model, right?
What if I told you can easily take your miniature bases to the next level? Well, now you can with the new basing products from Siege Scenics. Siege Scenics is dedicated to helping you create immersive and realistic environments for your miniatures that feel alive and dynamic, whether you're setting the stage for an epic tabletop battle or telling a rich, unfolding story with your competition display. From the warm hues of autumn to the crisp frost of winter, Siege Scenics has you covered with expertly crafted products that capture the ever-changing beauty of nature and bring it straight to your miniatures. To see the full collection and place your order now, head to siegescenics.co.uk or check the link in this episode's description.
I guess army painting specifically, would be the best candidate for planning in terms of its like best use case, right? Because you can plan a character all you want, but in terms of like maximizing efficiency, I would say that planning an army is much more important than planning an individual miniature. Especially depending on what that miniature's for. I mean, maybe if it's for your army, you've got your army plan anyway, right? If you know what I mean. So it's kind of like a universal thing. Because when you go off to break and do single characters, even 6 months after you finish the army, you've got that plan to revert back to, right? But what for you are the most important parts of army planning to get right?
I think there's two aspects to it. Obviously, you've got the overriding color scheme that you might have a thought of, like, I want to paint like Ultramarines or Dark Angels or Cadians or whatever it is that you want to paint. But then within that, there's lots of other things to decide, like the cloth or the leather, or like, what skin tones am I going to have? What hair color am I going to have? Or like, this unit are like an elite guard. I want them to have a distinguishing factor that makes them an elite guard. What splash color could I put on them to make them look more senior in rank than others?
Can you kind of get more nitty gritty than that though? Like in terms of like steps, like maximizing it, most efficient ways to paint stuff, and maybe trying to corner cut. Because one thing I like to do as an example is I would take whatever one thing I would do is I would take my, I guess like gold standard best case scenario list of paints and stages that I would do if I had like all the time in the world. And I'll start with that and start scraping things out rather than building up from scratch, if that makes sense. So if I had my army's Blood Angels, if I had a character that I wanted to paint, to like competition standard, what colors would I use? Lay them all out. What stages would I use? Blending, glazing, this shadow, this, that, the other. I'd lay all of that out, and then I would kind of transcribe that to how would that look for an army. So which of these stages are removable? Which of them are like essential? Or maybe could I take these two stages and combine the colors as like a mix, and then I only have to do one step rather than two? Things like that. Even when it comes to like maybe how I'm going to build them. I know you've spoken about this a little bit, Joe, I think especially when you're doing like kill teams and stuff, or you're obviously doing way more gaming with your army that you're doing. So I guess like loadout considerations. And we've spoken before about maybe choosing loadouts or miniatures that are actually easier to paint because they've got like less stuff on them, which correct me if I'm wrong, but now I think because the loadouts are less important.
Unless you're going to a tournament where people want it to look exactly... To avoid confusion, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. So to avoid confusion, because it can be seen as a bit of a tactic to sort of confuse your opponent if you've got like a squad and they've all got these weapons and you're like, oh, this guy's got this and this guy's got this, by the way. But when you're playing casual games, because the points now aren't based around the weapon, you can pretty much just go with whatever stylistic option. And I imagine most of your casual games will be fine, like as long as you explain to people. Oh, by the way, that's not a rocket launcher. I'm going to run that as a sniper or something. No one's really going to care, I don't think. I always argue if they do care, you probably don't want to play against them. So yeah, you can make those like decisions based on the hobby side of things a little bit more now without it having much of an impact.
Some of them are even just cosmetic choices anyway. So like a shoulder pad, for example. When I'm building my army or building any miniature project, at the very first stage when I'm clipping parts out of the sprue, I need to know what the objective of this project is. Because if it's just, I want to paint the coolest thing ever, I'll pick the coolest parts that I think work together. If I go, this needs to be done as quickly as humanly possible, I'm going blank shoulder pads, no belt buckles, no pouches. They're not going to have, dual wielding pistols and sword and all this stuff. They're going to have just bog standard gun. Preferably, if there's two options of gun, one with some extra details on it and one without, the one without, please.
Yeah, like what I remember when I very first got back into Warhammer, and I was like painting and gaming and everything, mostly with Barrett, who we've mentioned before on the podcast, and he was very much this like, he didn't even look at the instructions when he was building his models. Like he literally
I remember
just
you saying that to me.
Did not care about what the instructions had to say at all. Just built the models how he wanted to build the models and how they looked the best. And then that was it. And I could not get over it. I was like, how do you know that it's done properly? How do you know those parts are supposed to go together? And he's like, oh, I don't care. Looks cool. I was like, I wish I could do that, but that just like, I can't, my brain isn't formatted that way. I'm like, I need to build it perfectly as it tells me to in the instructions. And then I'll know that it's done properly. But that's very much like that, I suppose you're saying. Yeah, I'll just pick all the cool bits based on this thing, or I'll pick all the plain bits based on this other thing. For me, I would struggle with that. I just have to build it the correct way. Not that there is an actual correct way before everyone gets on.
In your mind, the correct way.
In my mind, the correct way, or the way that the instructions is laid out, so that I know it's done properly. If that makes sense.
I think that's really interesting. You're quite right what you said about like ultimately the end goal of what you're doing and choosing parts that are relative to that for that purpose, because it does help massively, and that does translate to when you want to think about what colors and things to use. I know you asked me a bit more granular on it, but as an example, like the thing you're talking about, if you're painting something for an army and you want it to be more streamlined, then one of the real important things within the colors is just contrast. If you're using maybe 8 stages of highlighting for your, like the top end highlight is going to obviously be the most brightest for all the highlighting you're doing, but if you're stripping that down to an army level, what that actually means is that your jumps in color between each of the reduced amount of stages that you use should have a greater jump between them, which doesn't sacrifice the impact of contrast on the models through using less paint, if that makes sense. And I think that there are things like that with all the will in the world, having a digital thing and writing it down is all well and good, but plainly seeing them all laid out next to each other makes it way easier to go, well, that works better, good with that.
That
that
is the
works
thing you
good with
lose
that.
without the visual representation. Like I've written it many times in my notes. I'll plan a project in my notes app on my phone, and I'm just coming up with like a skeleton in my brain of like, okay, for the black, I'll use this color, this color, this color. It's a perfect plan. And then you put the paint on the model, and you're like, oh, these colors are like basically the same.
Yeah.
Got to adjust. But like you said, if I'd had like the swatches there to reference in the book or whatever, I would have known just from looking at them.
That's why I've always used one, because I think that for me, being able to pull it off the shelf and go, cool, those ultramarines that I painted 10 years ago, I just need to look at the colors that I used and look at this and seeing it and then go, if I want to paint that, maybe I've done like 5 highlight stages or whatever, and I go, I want to paint it similar but quicker, I can then just sub out 2 or 3 of those and go, I can do that one, that one, that one. And then I think that's one of the things, like with planning projects in general, one of the biggest things I would advise is like have a goal, and that goal should determine all the choices that lead you to it. So that should be your anchor point, and then from that you should go, cool, okay, well I want to paint an army in 6 weeks, and I've got a tournament coming up, and I need it to be minimum 3 color because that's what the tournament requires, but also I want it to be highly impactful on the table. So then you start planning the colors that deliver that for you in that time frame. And I think that's one of the important things when it does come to like planning in general, is to focus on the goal and make your process of getting there fulfill the task but not be as arduous as possible. And I think that's one of the things that I'd always recommend.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
a really great point.
Part of what you're saying as well is almost, I think we might have mentioned this before, but like essentially coming up with your own painting levels. So like a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, for example, and then deciding based on your army list which ones you're going to paint to which levels. So like knowing, like you say, which ones you're going to be I'm pushing this to the highest point. This is my ultimate kind of paint list, competition level paint list, and which ones are going to be that like level 1, if you like.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the big differences with an army painting versus I suppose even if you had that built in, it would help you with your single models as well.
I think so.
Because you could then decide, okay, I'm going to do this to my mid level or something.
Well, and equally, this is kind of what I was speaking about with the like sort of retrospective planning thing, is future tense, having that to look back on. Even within the levels thing, you could say, oh, I really like what I did on that plasma pistol for that Blood Angel. I'm painting a Dark Angels army now. It's 2 years later, but I really like what I did for that. Have a quick look at the journal, and then you go, oh, or your notes or whatever it is. Have a quick look at that. You can see instantly what you did, and you go, oh, that was only my like basic tabletop standard, but it actually looks really good. Oh, how can I push that even further?
Yeah.
Adapt from there.
Add extra colors into it. Yeah. And that's one of the things I like, however you document it, like whether it's digital, whether it's analog, whether it's like on a bit of paper, whatever.
Whether it's on your C Studios painting journal.
There is that.
One of the many options available to you.
Well, I like the fact that the reason to document and the reason to actually plan projects is so that it actually makes your painting easier, maybe not in its execution, but actually easier in memory. Like the perfect example, that I've got this plasma pistol that I painted, and I've been there many a time where I've had like a model or I've painted something on it, and we're all guilty of it. We forget how we do it, we forget the colors that we've used, all that kind of stuff, because you've been in the ebb and flow of creativity and you're just sitting there with a palette and doing all those things. However, just taking a brief moment each time you choose a color to remember it in some way means that you can then go, that plasma pistol and that Chaos Space Marine I painted 6 years ago, I love that plasma pistol. It looks great. The color I got, and now I'm doing a new army. The orange would work like amazingly within a contrasting color. So being able to just literally unplug that process that you've done for that pistol and just go and slot it into the new model is like the reason for doing it. It makes your life easier. So then you've got to sit there for X amount of time working out the colors all again because you've done that work. Like, think of it this way: you're redoing the work to get to the result every single time from a new start point, rather than going, I've finished that bit. I know how I've done that. I can just do that again really quickly and selectively choose those colors. And I think that's why, however you document it, however you plan, I would always recommend that you do so.
Like I said earlier, I think it might not fall within the literal definition of the word, but I do think that planning is kind of a before, during, and after the project, something that you can still do.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like I said, we've all been there, and the point of this episode isn't even necessarily to suggest you have to plan every single project. You have to sit there for 20, 30 minutes, whatever. But I think even if you have just sat down, painted for fun, enjoyment, had a good time with it. I do think just at the end of that, when it's all said and done, while it's still fresh in your memory, just writing down in any form the paints you used, the order, the steps, the highlighting stages, whatever. And if you can, I think a little note at the end of just like what you found hard on the project or something like that. Because I've spoken, this is
Like
Journaling
this is
almost.
another.
Like full journal.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
exactly.
tangenting a little bit, but I've said many times before what I do with my social media. The whole reason that exists for me is just a back catalogue of all the miniatures that I've painted, and I can look at any single one of those posts, and in the captions, I write like a little, paragraph or two, just saying what I painted, how I found the process, what I struggled with, what I didn't struggle with, what I enjoyed, what went well, etc. And that means that I can kind of look back on that as a point in time, because it's so easy to forget as well.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really helpful when you're struggling with motivation, because I've been in many points in the hobby where having a bit of a lull and you're not feeling great about it or whatever. But you can just go back and look at some older posts and go, hey, look, you used to really struggle with this thing that you now find really easy,
Yeah.
as like a little bit of a motivational boost. And it can kind of help you document your progress as a painter, because it's so easy to forget about stuff like that. You paint something, 3 years later, you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, that looks great. And you forget that you actually had a terrible time painting it,
Amen.
or you struggled with it. Or equally,
Amen.
like it might have been an amazing success. Taking a moment to kind of document that and write about it can be helpful as well, because then that's the thing you enjoy. And you might go, oh, painting the cloth actually went really, really well. I thought it would be quite hard because it was new for me in this color, but it actually went really, really well. Making a note of that might give you the spark to try out more things that are outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I'm 100% guilty for writing notes of like on projects and basically saying like, oh, like I tried this, it didn't work out. Like I've tried this instead, and adding this color in works really well with this. Like on my project planning pages, I'm very guilty of writing notes to myself as memories, so that when
It's
I
not guilty like it's a bad thing. That's what we're
Well,
suggesting.
but I'll then look back at it like, again, if I take it away with me or whatever, I'll then look back at it and go, cool. And it's really nice to actually read through those pages again and look at the choices and things that I made to kind of like help me make choices in the future and look at where I struggled and look at those things. The other thing I wanted to add on to it, and it goes army planning in general as a topic, like it's not just about painting. And this is the other thing that I think is quite important. I'll write down like problems I had with builds, like the way if I've pinned something before and it's worked really well, like the way I've pinned it, like the type of joint that I've created, all these kind of things. That also really helps to then for you to look back and then go, oh, do you know what? I've got this new model with these two parts that connect. I'm sure there was something previously that I'd done that I connected two parts that are very similar to that. And then you can find that again, and that will help you to do it, like documenting difficult builds.
Especially if they're repeatable in your army. Like you might have some specific unit that's a massive pain to put together, and just writing a little note about the best way to do it, so that if you come back to doing them again, before you sit down and start, you quickly have a look through your notes. Like, oh, I forgot that's actually quite difficult.
I'll tell you one. The first time I done Inceptor flight stands, the first time I done them, okay.
Oh, the little like
the curved one. Yeah, the first time I done that, I found a way to drill them and put them in, so the pin hides, and also it's a bit of a more solid connection point. I wrote that down because I was like, this new style of like flying stand, I reckon this is going to be the new way of doing flying stands.
Has anyone ever in history, literally ever, all time, actually been successfully able to glue one of those flight stands onto an Inceptor backpack?
Look, I think there's probably a fairly good reason why we haven't seen those flight stands on many other models since.
Or is it on any other model?
They're on Seraphim and Zephyrium.
They're on those.
They're dainty, they're little models.
Yeah, they still come off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I haven't had much interaction with them since Inceptors. So
Yeah. But
Well, you're the gamer. You're supposed to
Come on, pro
let us know
gamer.
how undurable they are.
oh well, yeah, but I don't think those models are particularly good in the game.
Oh, right.
So-
Maybe that's intentional.
yeah, I have no idea. To be fair, I can't say I've encountered any Inceptors.
Side note then, so what do? You put a pin in it?
I put a pin. So I drill
Like in the flight stand?
So I drill into the body, and then I drill into the barrel of because you got this.
It's like a curve. It's like a
You got
claw.
a curved bit on the back of the
It's like
body.
a Lego
I don't remember.
hand.
You got
Yeah,
the
but you go like into the middle of it.
So I
Right.
drill into like the C shape that's on the flight stand, and then I drill a hole in the barrel, and then I put a little pin, and it just
Oh, okay.
the
not a bad idea.
C shape holds the barrel in place, but the pin is what firmly secures it to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a strategy I've tried as well. Is don't buy them.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I mean that works.
You can take either one of those as your hobby hack for this
Yeah.
week. I think.
Yeah.
No, I like that as a hobby hack. No,
Yeah.
we're throwing that in.
Yeah,
that's the hobby
that
hack
counts
for
as
this week.
that counts as
Yeah,
a
that
hobby hack,
counts.
I think that's
Okay.
very. I was thinking as we were going, like, there's quite a few of these we could have done as a hobby hack. But then that one is a legit hobby hack, I feel like.
Sure thing.
There you go. You get it early in the episode.
Yeah. But
This is what we do in the new era.
In the new century of Paint Perspective.
Yeah. You just never know when you're getting it.
It's going to be slipped in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I like that, actually. I don't hate that, I'll be honest.
I just think in whatever format that you do it, we put so much time, effort, and attention into these miniatures that we paint. Not taking a moment or two to just think about what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. I know it's a hobby, and I'm sure people will say, "Oh, but it's my hobby. It's my time to get away from obviously all the other things in life or de-stress, or whatever." And I get that totally. But if you really care about something and you really care about what you're trying to produce, and it's something that maybe isn't just for throwing around the table with some dice, and you really love this model or whatever, those brief couple of minutes that you do spend when you're got those minutes to kill will totally transform your approach to painting.
I'll be honest though, I think it's a perspective thing as well. Like I always thought of
good pun there.
I did the thing. I always thought of it as like, oh, I don't want to do that because it's like homework. Like I don't want to do homework, but it is actually a fun thing to do. Like it doesn't have to be really serious either. Like we've given you some very thorough, advice and tips for doing it, but like it doesn't have to be this big deal thing of like, now they're telling me on this podcast I've got to start like planning. It's like, when people say like, oh, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I do my morning mindfulness and all that.
Yeah, I wake up at 5 a.m. I write my recipe for black.
So it doesn't have to be like, I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be like this big thing. You can just treat it as like before we sit down to paint, I'm just going to make a quick, it takes 2 minutes. It can be a fun thing as well. Like it's actually just an enjoyable activity in and of itself. And it will improve your painting as well.
It's become a bit of a hobby. I'm going to say that to you now.
James took it so seriously, he made a product.
Yeah.
I just want to say as well, because we get sometimes, every now and then, when we do stuff like this, we get like a few comments that are like, oh, it's just supposed to be fun. Why are you making it like this? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. The beauty of it is you don't have to do any of this. Like, we're not saying you have to do any of this.
No, 100%.
This is for the people that are interested in doing this.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of giving tips on that. Like, you absolutely can just sit down and do whatever you want with your half hour of painting.
Of course you can.
Like, no one is saying that doing this is necessarily better or worse for you specifically.
Yeah.
But this is like our point of view as people who paint a lot.
Yeah.
We feel that this is something that's very, very valuable to you and can ultimately improve your painting, which I think is the spirit of the podcast, obviously.
It is, yeah. And again, I wouldn't put the time, effort into this if I didn't feel that it would give value to people, which is what ultimately I want to do with the podcast, and also at the same time with things that we do as a company. I really want to.
And equally, like I said, even if you're not planning on picking up the journal, this is definitely something you can do. However you choose.
Digitally or analog or on paper or whatever.
I know we're trying to round out, but I've got one more thing.
Go for it.
I'm just going to mention. Because I'm sort of calling myself out, but I'm also going to call everyone out that does this.
Oh, if you're going down, you're bringing us all with you.
Yeah. So I'm just, if you do this, this is both your sign and my sign to stop.
Yeah.
On the note of writing down what paints you've used and stuff like that, the story I told about the orc earlier, for example, part of the reason that recipe never got written down is because I'll get to the end of a painting session and I'll leave all the paints that I've used out on the desk and I'll go, can't really be bothered to write everything down at the minute. I won't write it down now. I'll leave the paints out and I'll write it down another time, or I'll take a picture of the paints or something like that. The picture gets lost. You've got 15,000 pictures on your
I've done that.
iPhone. We all have it. We're all there. And I'm telling you now, if you don't write it down in that moment, you will not write it. That is both to me and anyone who thinks that's aimed at them. It's aimed at you.
Can I pile in actually? Because luckily I've come out of this one unscathed.
Yeah.
The states of used to's desks like stresses me out.
The
idea that like paints are coming off the rack and then they just live on the table now. What is that about?
No. My paints don't live on the table. They remain on the table until I've written them on my recipe.
No, just put back on the rack.
But then when am I writing it and how do I remember what I used?
We'll use a bit of wet paint from the wet palette into your book. The paint goes back on the shelf.
Sell me the journal.
Or a bit of paper or whatever it is you're going to put it down on.
Right, okay, you'll agree though.
On my notes app.
Paint your phone screen,
You'll agree though, James's desk, carnage.
James's desk is carnage and James has 2 desks.
Yeah.
So that's even
Mega
more
desk.
bizarre. Yeah, that's even more bizarre.
And both of them equally messy.
For different purposes, one airbrush, one painting. So yeah.
I would say
it's because
No,
I-
we're not done with you yet.
I like the cathartic cleanup at the end. I like starting with a very clean desk and finishing with one that's
I've
carnage.
never tidied my desk in my life. Do you know why? I don't make a mess.
Not everyone's
Yeah,
as perfect as you, George.
I don't. Mine isn't that bad. Mine isn't really bad at all now that I've got the things up on the wall.
I got the shelves. I
Yeah,
forgot about that.
Yeah.
They've held out, have they?
See, that's
Yeah.
what I'm missing.
Yeah.
I need some racks with command strips, I think.
Do you know what? Yeah, the issue I ran into with it was that I did all the command strips like in a line with each other, and it was sort of angling
Oh, you got to do them vertical.
down.
Yeah.
Well, no, because they were too big. The ones
Right.
I got
You cut
to do
them, scissors.
vertical. Yeah, well. So what I did in the end,
That's the whole point.
then you have to use more of them to go vertical. So I thought if I did horizontal, I'm covering more surface area.
Yeah, but they're stronger vertical because the paint rack is always trying
Anyway,
to pull away.
yeah, but what I did was I did 2 on either side, and then I did 1 in the middle, slightly lower down,
Right.
and
I
that's
think I'm
kind
just
of
That's done
going
it.
to
That's
screw
doing it.
mine into the wall.
You can screw them into the wall. The idea of the command strips is renter friendly.
Yeah, true.
That's the idea of the command strips.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the command strips are the superior method. They're definitely not. Ideally, you just drill them straight into the wall. But
yeah. You own your house, so you
but
can,
get
you
a
can
barrier,
drill all you want.
get a barrier in the wall and job done. Like yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean yeah, I agree with you. Like
If I tried to do that, I'd probably go through to next door.
have you got the
It's Johnny.
plasterboard walls? That are like,
No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But that is funny enough. It is the wall that backs onto next
I
door.
always see these like DIY TikToks of Americans, and I forget that their walls are made out of like cardboard
Well,
boxes.
they're not walls.
Yeah.
yeah, they're literally cardboard boxes.
It's like someone took a cereal box and was like, "That will do."
Yeah.
Yeah, just stack them up and paint them. Good
I
times.
mean, we're in the weeds now. But do you ever remember the video of the woman that was eating it? There's a woman that was eating. There was addicted
Hang on,
to
what the
eating.
hell's going on?
There was a woman that was addicted to eating the drywall.
right. I
she
know
would,
I
like,
put this
pick
in the
it-
weeds, Joe, but this is a
She would
bit
like
much.
pick it. Every time I think of like American houses and drywall, I think of that woman. She used to like pick it off and just eat it. It was on like a TV show.
That's
in
mental.
America.
Is it like My Strange Addiction?
I'm
or
done.
something
One of
like
them,
that?
yeah, one of
I'm
them
absolutely
ones, yeah.
cooked.
Do you know what that reminds me of?
That's
That
it,
reminds me of those 5-minute craft videos where they like fix a sink with ramen noodles.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
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 I mean, look,
This is what people tune into the end of the podcast for.
the listeners would have seen it. They know what I'm on about. Everyone's seen that video. Yeah, I hope she's doing well.
On that note, I think we'll round out the podcast there. We're going to jump over now to the post show, which is a benefit for our patrons. So if you want to get extended versions of the podcast completely ad free and a load of other benefits like extended video tutorials, PDF tutorials, lots of extra stuff, then check the link in the description of this episode. Otherwise, we will see you next week. What did you predict it was before?
I kind of thought you might revisit Black Templar
He's smirking.
type
He's smirking.
situation, but this is a live reaction. Oh, he's going for it.